Here we go. Hey, everybody.
Hello. I'm John.
I'm Angela. Checking the sound. Checking the sound.
Waiting for the delay. Waiting for the delay.
This is the worst part about doing a live podcast. That's good enough. All right.
Okay, headphones off.
Headphones off. Welcome back once again to Characters, Campaigns, and Role-Playing Games. Our sort of by half a week. We do it every other week.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
It's not bi-monthly.
No, bi-weekly.
All right. We did not broadcast yesterday. It was Mother's Day, and as many of you know, I am a mother, and I felt like I didn't want to do it, so we did it. Actually, we were just out and about, visiting with family and such. So we
all over the place.
Yes.
All over Northeast Ohio.
Yes. So, we moved everything to today, which worked out great because we got to flesh out a lot of other things that we wanted to talk about.
We did. Tonight, we'll be talking about the character creation process for different games we've played, how they compare to what we're going to do in Descended, and the good and the bad of... Heck, there's bad things about what we're doing now, because, no system is perfect, but... We're trying.
I'm just sad because all my characters always die in your campaigns. 100%.
Not on purpose. Not on purpose.
100% of my characters in every campaign you have ever DM'd for us.
Ava didn't.
She needed some serious healing in the very first fight.
I got poisoned in the first fight.
Yeah, but...
And went unconscious, and you were fine.
I had boo-boos.
You took like 3 damage.
It was a lot of... I only had 7 HP, damn! Long story short, every campaign that he's ever run, almost all of them, I have just been like, I've just gone in and like, alright, let's do this! Boom! One shot, dead. I didn't even have time to roll dice.
Actually, we can segue right from that into one of the bad things about class-based systems.
How does that have anything to do with class-based systems?
Because your race-class combination, we'll start with D20 systems like Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons.
Back it up a little bit. The one thing we want to start with right now is we're going to talk about race-class systems and other character...
Totally messed up the segue.
No, your segue was bad. And you should feel bad. Yeah, we're going to go into talking about, kind of in 3 parts, race-class systems, how we're applying what we've learned through playing... what we've learned playing, because we've learned a lot of cool shit we just want to share. Stats. Yeah. Stats. And other such related things.
Alright, so, back to what I was saying. You experienced one of the downsides of the race-class combination paradigm that a lot of games use.
Yeah, apparently 4 times.
Well, that's, the problem that you ran into for some of those times was simply not having enough hit points for what an average encounter of your level could do. And there's not much you can do about that when you decide you want to play in the case of Ava, sorceress. You get bad hit points, but at the same time, you're also playing a human.
Should say
no bonus to Constitution.
For reference, for the character we're specifically talking about now, we're talking about Pathfinder.
Okay. Yeah,
no, it's just like for reference, you know.
Pathfinder Sorcerer.
Yeah, because you could say 3/5 Sorcerer, and it's about the same.
It would have been even worse. You would have had a D4 hit die instead of a D6.
And that would have sucked. So yeah, you just don't want to catch yourself in those situations, but that's what we're talking about.
But yeah, one of
hold on
the...
Hold on a second. Go mess with this.
We're adjusting our...
We're adjusting the mic.
Yeah.
I hope that didn't mess up too much. The whole mic system's just going to fall over and it'll be great.
You're just going to see it fall down, smash into the screen.
No, it's going to fall backwards and it's going to hit the TV. It's going to be the best part.
It's not going to reach the TV.
Anyway.
It might pull the camera down with it, though. That'd be fun.
Alright, so, yeah, no, you know what? Every one of my characters have had this problem in different systems, so... Just
you always...
Go ahead and cycle through them,
damn. The system you've played the most is obviously the D20 system.
Mm-hmm.
So, be it Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, or you've never played D20 Modern, but it's the same principle.
I have.
You have?
In high school.
Oh.
It was not memorable.
Ah.
It was the same thing, but it wasn't memorable.
Ah. I happen to like D20 Modern, but I'm
minority?
solidly in the minority. A lot of people don't like it very much. They handle mecha-based combat fairly well, but that's not the point here. In the race class combination paradigm, one of two things happens specifically with the race. Either your race is the only thing that matters, and your character is made or broken based on the race that you've decided to be. And it also can be restrictive in some games, like we were talking earlier about Cthulhu Tech. Cthulhu Tech's only got 2 races, and your choice of race has some bearing on your character, but not a huge bearing.
There's one job class that it affects.
And there's 2.5 races, because there's 2 different versions of the Nazadi, and they're almost identical. And the other race is obviously humans, and humans I don't think gain any combat advantages. Humans are just like run-of-the-mill, you're a human, and then the Nazadi are like, here's a couple of buffs and a couple of debuffs. And
there's no variation on it, really.
Yeah. And it doesn't affect how you play the game very much, given that you can always just make up for anything you could get for being a Nazadi, you could make up as a human by having the right equipment. So it's not as important as it could be.
But then there's other.
But then there's other games like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Or actually, any edition before that. Actually, first edition. We'll start with first edition.
Oh God, no! Don't start with first edition. I'm looking. I can see the boxes.
Oh, we do have the boxes up there. Elf, dwarf, and halfling. Weren't even classes. That was your race. That was what you were. Later on came, advanced second edition and AD&D, and there were really powerful classes and builds that you could have that, you're not an elf? Can't be an arcane archer. That's an entire style of combat that you're locked out of. But if you were an elf, you were a warrior-style character with crappy HP. Because you're an elf. Elves lose hit points because they're less sturdy.
Of course, all that is ancient history, really.
Yes. I mean, and then you...
it just created new problems once you get to 3.5, which everybody is probably most familiar with if you play tabletop games.
It's one of the more popular editions.
That is where you create problems. I wish I could turn the camera around and just show the minuscule collection of books.
I've got about maybe a dozen and a half books over there, and I possess a fraction of the books that were available. They just had too many options, and most of them weren't even worth looking at. So you ended up... they put out a new book every 3 months, and then you go and get that book, and you look through it, and you're like, I just spent $35 on a bundle of paper that has maybe a feat that I like, or a spell or two that are maybe worth learning.
Probably another... honestly, I think that might be an inherent problem with... just distributing games too.
That could be a problem as well. That's also really rapid timetable for pushing out updates on a tabletop game.
You know what? Though, wait, really quick. I do want to compare that to one other thing because this is Wizards of the Coast, and you know what else they were sticking out every 3 months?
Magic.
They're just trying to fill in the blanks in there. It's like the same thing.
Yeah. But while we're back to the subject of choosing your race, back to the other end of the spectrum, we've got MMOs, where you've got, on the one hand, you've got World of Warcraft, where it's, alright, your race, choosing your race can drastically change how you play your class. Sometimes it's not important, sometimes it is. I think that's probably an example of how a race choice could be useful. Because where if you want it to augment your class, it can. Otherwise, if you just want to get a couple of nifty extras, it can do that for you instead. But then... at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, Rift.
You've just been dying to talk about this.
I've been dying to talk about this. When you choose Rift's class system is phenomenal. It's so versatile. You can pick whatever. You pick basically an archetype. You get warrior. You have warrior, mage, cleric, and thief, or whatever they called them. And that's your archetype, and you've got a bunch of different subclasses in that archetype that you can mix and match and get abilities from, and you can make a lot of really interesting character builds. But then you've also got your race, and each faction has 3 races that are literally exactly the same except for how they look. And they tried to make them a little different by giving them this... They each get a different kind of movement-based ability that changes how they can speed up. But that's it. That's all it is.
You know what?
They're otherwise exactly the same. It's just how you want your character to look.
You know who else ended up going that direction? ESO. I don't know if you noticed it, but I looked it up a lot, and it was a big complaint both visually and in how it affected your character build overall, because they had so few actual like class options. You had a lot of racial stuff that you could put points into, but your class was ultimately more important, and like the stuff you trained in.
They pulled that out, didn't they?
Well, no, you still have racial options. It's just a big open world for the most part that doesn't have a lot of variance in it other than where you start. So those racial options aren't as important. They just get kind of cast to the side. Definitely something we avoided.
Giving them a skill tree for their race, which is what they did. They each have a skill tree, but it's really linear, and there's not a whole lot. I don't think you can even evolve them like you can the racial ability or the class abilities.
I didn't look at it hardly at all because it wasn't relevant, especially early in the game. You know,
in the game when you don't have the ability to.
Well, when you're playing, those levels like 1 to 20 in an MMO are very important.
Because that's when you learn how to play the game and how you want to make how you want to build your character.
That is going to be make or break whether or not you're going to commit to having a second life in this game. And they just took an entire part of it, and they're like, it's kind of not important. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of something I'll never learn because, shit, why would you ever?
No, we could be wrong about that. We did just play a few hours during Welcome Back weekend, so
yeah,
it could be a little more expansive than we're remembering. We still have to procure copies of the game to continue MMO Overkill in the future, but
we'll talk about all that then.
Yeah. Let's see. I
actually want to talk about some of the cool things we found. Because we've just kind of like jumping around and like bashing, like this kind of doesn't work and this kind of doesn't work. That was a little incoherent, but I want to talk about some of the things that totally end up working and some of the cool shit we found.
Okay.
As far as games.
Okay, you go first.
Okay.
So you
segued,
you continue.
Alright, so the only time you ever really complimented me on like, that's a cool idea was...
It's probably not the only time.
No, it really was. Because, alright, you know what, I'll start this way. Because it'll kind of tie into everything else. The way I build characters is inherently flawed as far as actually being on top of my game 100% of the time in combat.
You don't optimize.
I don't optimize for hardly anything.
Which isn't bad.
It's not bad because of the way I like to play. When I'm playing...
Also depends on the system.
That's true.
Pathfinder, you can get away with a lot less optimization. Yeah. You're still effective.
All other classes are just so much tighter. It's easy to
except for Monk.
Sorry, monks.
Monk is still fun. It's a fun class. It's just it's a little weaker than it could be.
The way I build a character is inherently flawed from like the standpoint of somebody who's trying to build a character that's specifically good at something. I look at a character and I'm like, ooh, you know what would be a cool idea? And I start with that, which I'm sure a lot of people think of it sort of the same way as they know what they want to play. But for me, when I think of a cool idea, is, you know what's a cool idea? A witch who's blind in one eye and has a pet lizard. That's not a character. That's just an idea. That is not stats. That is not where you start. But that's how I start.
It's not a bad start. It's just a matter of...
So, of course, once upon a time, I thought, you know what would be a cool idea? Being a vampire. Sex slave. We had a weird period of time in college, didn't we?
We did.
We had a half-angel, half-devil in that campaign.
We did. We had one of those, too.
He was the most boring character.
He was a hellbred, half-celestial paladin with actually one of the coolest backstories ever, and he was
just boring.
No, he's a boring player.
Boring player. But, regardless...
Apparently his special talent is come up with one single solitary good idea and then not build on it ever.
Well, because he felt conflicted about playing the character. Okay, I'm done. We're done bashing.
I feel conflicted about playing a character that redeems people.
I don't know. But no, I did play a vampire spawn. That was awesome, except for once, we didn't start anywhere close to level 8. And if you know anything about being a monster class,
the way monster classes work in 3.5, D&D 3.5, is they spread out all the abilities of whatever monster you're playing as over class levels so that you increase in power at about the same rate as somebody would be gaining class levels that would be equivalent to that. Which is fine, except that you have to take into account the hit die of the creature.
Yeah.
Which is almost never 1-to-1 with the number of levels it takes to gain all of their abilities, because they take their hit die and they add their challenge, their character level adjustment, and they add the two together, and that's how many levels it takes. Mm-hmm. And since they usually have positive numbers in both of those, it's taking more levels to get than you're getting hit dice. Which, for some of them, like some monster classes, get a huge bonus to Constitution. Those ones don't care as much because they're getting a bunch of extra hit points from that.
If you play an undead that has no con...
Yeah, you don't get any bonus hit points per level. So she was sitting there we were level 5, so I think you might have had 3 hit dice.
Maybe.
They were D12s, but that's all you had.
Regardless, I didn't have a lot of hit points, and then I was finding myself locked into a class. I couldn't deviate from anything. You have to finish that.
Yes, that's the other detail. You can't take any...
See, we're just bashing the class again. Let me get to the good part.
Okay.
The good part is, once I hit level 8, I did not want to, because the one beautiful, absolutely wonderful benefit is I didn't have to rest at all. That was awesome, not having to rest. Of course, by level 8, there's other class combinations that can take certain abilities and feats. They wouldn't have to either, but I didn't have to, and I didn't have to waste my awesome feats. So that was cool for me. I was doing different things.
You only had like 2 feats.
Shut up. I was doing different things. So the class that I found, because I was just searching for every reason in the book to not take a casting class whatsoever, despite how good it would have been, just because I didn't want to give it that one little detail, was Street Fighter. And
oh yeah,
it had, so one time you complimented me because I picked this class, and you're like, that is the best combo ever. You don't take damage when it's non-lethal damage in my monster class.
Undead, specifically, one of the traits of being an undead in most D20 games that have undead is that non-lethal damage is converted to 0. You do not take non-lethal damage, you just ignore it. And the Street Fighter Prestige class in D&D 3.5 had the ability to, whenever it took damage, I think it was so many times a day. I don't think you could do it all the time.
You couldn't. It was at least 3 times a day, though.
Yeah,
first level.
It was so many times per day you could attempt a fortitude save, which is one of the 3 defensive attributes that you have in these games. The fortitude save was, I think you had to meet or exceed the damage you were taking, and you could convert all of that damage to non-lethal. And this is the damage that you were actually receiving, so if you have any damage reduction like you had, it would take that into account first, so you take less damage, then you make a save, convert it all non-lethal, and then you just shrugged off that barbarian that's swinging at you with his great axe, and now he's terrified.
Or even worse, even better than that, there were a lot of situations where something could just come in and... bosses were still scary. I didn't have the hit points for it. I could attempt to just get rid of whole attack. Somebody could focus on me being up close in melee, and I'm sitting here tanking hits without actually ever having to do it.
It also helped that you never had anything, because it wasn't Pathfinder yet, you had nothing to fear from rogues.
Yeah.
Or most status effects. You were immune to almost everything.
Yeah, it was...
they still are immune to everything, but you couldn't be crit or sneak attack, which was the big thing.
It did have its threats, of course, as any good class or race should.
Yeah.
That's an example of, if you
clerics.
know how to...
You were scared of clerics.
If you know how to pick, the right combination of things, you can ultimately do what you want. And I was trying to get out of just being... Well, for the most part, I was trying to get out of the party, too. The whole party needed somebody to just, go in there and deal with it. And it's like...
Yeah,
I don't want to.
Everyone, because once Feathers left the group, all we had was casters.
Yeah, and...
Casters or new players. Some of them were new players that were playing casters, and that's just a bad idea.
And of course I tried to play the character again, and the same thing happened, too. The second time, somebody needed to really be in the fray, and there was, 2 people who out of a 6-person group who could handle this. I had to take the role, and I didn't really want to take the role.
There was an extra person that could handle being in melee, but he would have been completely ineffective that close to his enemy. He was an archer. He was a goblin archer, so he was actually Alex's character was actually staggeringly good at not getting hit.
Yeah, and staggeringly good. It says rough terrain, not on fire. I will never forget that exchange.
He did try to argue once that...
No, wait, we have to tell the whole story. I know this is a total tangent, but...
They were fighting a Warforged Titan, which, admittedly, you guys weren't supposed to fight it.
We were in the camp.
Oh, right.
We were in the camp, and
it was the boss encounter for the little mini arc they were on. They were up against some orc slavers. So they had this camp. They had a couple of slave pens. They wanted to rescue the slaves and beat up the orcs, and like you do.
So Alex found a small. It was off to the east. He found a small strip that led to a guard tower. I remember this very specifically. He was going to go and move that way.
Maps for this somewhere.
He was going to move that way, and he was going to pick off the 2 guards and save us some time so somebody can make their way to the boss. Mm-hmm. That was his intention.
Specifically you. I was
the one who ended up
I do recall you holding down the boss so that...
Well, I was already there. I was already in the camp, so it was easier for me to do. But he went
in the slave pens.
Yeah, thanks. So he went and started, with his little goblin archer, he started a fire.
To draw the guards away.
To draw the guards away so he could start picking them off. And then he argued that his character...
He wasn't seriously arguing, but he tried to fudge it.
He really did. He was like, no, I can move normally through rough terrain. And your exact response is that, like, the stone cold... Like, this guy right here does...
He was playing what was at the time my favorite class. He was playing a scout.
Yeah, but
the thing is... my favorite class in 3.5.
This guy right here, he doesn't ever, like, not have a smile. He's never upset about anything, and in just the stone coldest look, he's just like, rough terrain means rough terrain, not on fire.
I do think we did have to pause the game to...
We did.
We had to pause the game because we were laughing.
I mean, it was...
I've done that with other characters,
too. We're in the middle of a boss fight, and we're just arguing semantics, but I mean, hell, have you ever been in a game group where you're arguing semantics at some point?
No. At some point, somebody's getting screwed and wants to argue about how the rules work, but that's just a part of playing these games.
It happens. So yeah, that was one of my favorite class combinations. No, go ahead and talk about one of your favorite class combinations. Talk about a different system.
Different system?
Your dog.
Oh, right.
Tell me about the dog.
System first. The system is GURPS. But it was specifically the Fallout GURPS game. So we're playing in the Fallout universe, so post-atomic war, vaults everywhere, ruins, and stuff like that. And funny thing is, it was set in Cleveland. We were actually moving through Parma at the time. We were making our way from Parma up north into Cleveland because there's supposed to be a vault up there that we could scavenge. But the cool thing, GURPS was really cool because it doesn't have classes. At least the version we played didn't. Because I believe every setting probably gets its own... I think it gets its own spin on the rules. But the way GURPS works is you've got your stats, you've got your skills, like you would expect from any game. And we'll get into my gripe with stats later. But
that is going to be a big gripe for the second half of this.
Yes.
For sure.
So you have your stats, your skills, you pick your race, and then your class is more just what abilities did I pick up while I was leveling. And your race, some races are more powerful than others, but they actually offset that in a really clever way by just saying that the more powerful races learn their abilities a little more slowly. So you start out with better stats, whereas...
You don't gain
someone playing your average human is going to learn their abilities faster. They're going to pick up, like, the ability to snipe somebody, or being a better locksmith, fingersmith, something, whatever. They're
steely, grabby guy.
You're gonna. Yes, that's
really what it was called. It's called looter?
No, that's the perfect term to use in this context.
Somebody from...
So what I
don't know a city that's right. Yeah, that's a terrible thing to say.
But topical.
I'm sorry, you're not... okay, wait, hold on. You are allowed to loot anything you want in any role-playing system. It's totally okay, you're the hero. If you do it in real life, you're an asshole. Don't do it in real life, kids.
You know, the screen darkened when you did that.
It did?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, it did that.
I'm sorry about the autofocus on all this, by the way.
Yeah, we need to get a better camera. We've been having some issues with this one. But anyway.
Sorry, camera.
The cool thing that I could do was I could play a dog. So I was like, alright, I'm going to make a dog. And what my dog does is I trip people and I find things. And that was all my character did. They eventually named him Tiny because he was named ironically because he was a Mastiff. So I was playing a dog that was a good 4 feet tall at the shoulder. But I was really, really sneaky somehow. And I was really good at finding things. Unfortunately, the game master didn't know how to handle the loot system in GURPS, so all those abilities I picked up and skill points I spent to be good at finding extra treasure and ammo and stuff rounded out to about an extra 10 bullets throughout the course of the 3 sessions I played.
But the cool thing is being able to...
But the ability to play a character that's that... just having a character building method that's that flexible and lets you do that many different interesting things without making some characters arbitrarily stronger than others was really, really clever.
Mm-hmm. And also, it's one of those situations, one of those very good situations where you pick, when you get to freeform, pick up skills a little bit more as opposed to focusing on like, okay, what does this class do? You get to do those cool things. You get to play a Mastiff. You're never going to get to do that in real life. You're never going to get to do that in any other game. Look, I don't
get to be a dog that can sniff out gunpowder.
Sorry, buddy. But you don't have that opportunity in a lot of situations where you get to pick up these options and focus on, especially in that kind of setting too. It really works to that setting. You need to have somebody. When you're thinking post-apocalyptic, somebody who handles medical stuff, somebody who goes and scouts out and finds things, and is not going to get caught because if that person doesn't come back, you're screwed.
Yeah, there goes your ammo dump. But actually, I want to touch on another game system.
Go for it.
The Rift's game system, separate and distinct from Rift, which is an MMO.
No.
Although I'm pretty sure there was a lawsuit involved there somewhere. I think one copied the other, but. Palladium Rifts has been around for a while, and it's, like GURPS, is an extremely flexible system, but it's inherently flawed in how it handles its skills. The character that I made, the guy who was running the game didn't want us to start off incredibly weak or anything. The level cap in Rifts is only 15. It's fairly low as far as tabletop games go.
Whereas
the gold standard is 20.
Yeah, you've got 20, and then of course you have just epic level.
Yes.
You can go on forever if you so desire.
Rifts out of the box is level cap of 15, and I don't think it's designed to go much beyond that, if at all. But he started us, I believe level 2 or 3, and I remember he determined. Based on...
I'm sorry, I think Dart's kicking around something over here. Or dumb cat. If anybody would like to see the cats at the end of the episode, please leave a message in the chat. It comes up all the time.
Yes. This one here is not dead.
Games.
Is not dead. That's actually our most common question, is whether or not Cupcake is still alive. Cupcake is still alive.
She's always just sleeping in our recording spot. But yeah, continue.
So I built my character. I was like, all right, I want to be, and they do have classes and races, but they're really flexible in how they work. You can still do a lot of things within each one. So I was like, all right, I modeled him a little bit after Urza, the Planeswalker from Magic the Gathering, because he's my favorite Planeswalker. I'm kind of a sucker for the classics.
He's a nerd.
But I, to the best of my ability, made a kind of like steampunk Planeswalker type of guy. I guess he'd be more like Chandra.
Who cares?
But and I was like, all right, so I need what do I need to know to be a Leyline Walker? Was the class I chose. So what skills are Leyline Walkers good at? It's like, well, you're inherently good at things like geology and astrophysics. I'm like, like, okay. Or geography and astrophysics. I was like, all right, cool. I'll max these out and take abilities to just make myself a little bit more efficient at them. And the Game Master's like, cool, well, you've probably got a PhD in the astrophysics and probably a lesser degree, maybe a master's in geography. And I was like, all right, cool, that sounds awesome. And then I looked at my success rate with those skills. And it's like, okay, so I'm technically a doctor. I have a doctorate in astrophysics, but I've only got a 45% chance of succeeding at any given roll. So I'm going to roll the die in an attempt to, find out how fast something will hit the ground when dropped out of that second story window.
Well,
which is, that's pretty basic physics. And I had more than half the time I would not be able to give you the right number on that calculation.
That's pretty bad.
It's horrible.
Tell them about the map.
The map?
The map.
Oh, right. Later on, I was like, all right, I need to get from here to the next town over. It's only a day by car. Here's my map. Which way do we have to go? And I rolled my die, and I failed. I'm looking at a map, and we're only traveling a few miles away, and we got lost. Because in Palladium Rifts, all of your skill checks, everything you do is percentage-based, unless you're rolling damage or healing. And the things that you're good at, you start with a 35% chance at. And you add an extra 5% per level. And we were level 3. So I started at 35, and then levels 2 and 3 I get an extra 5%, and I still couldn't tell where I was going. So that I decided... What's...
No, just questions in the chat. Put the cat on someone's head.
We could. I don't know if we should, though.
Maybe. End of it.
Science done.
Any serious questions at the end, and then, if anybody wants to see Cupcake, I'll pull her out again and pull her out for every one of these just because she happens to be like our mascot.
Yes, apparently.
But go ahead.
We have a water dragon over in that tank over there.
Not a mascot.
But not our mascot, apparently.
Oh, hold on. Let me go ahead and move this. Go ahead and continue, though.
All right. So yeah, there needs to be a balance point between how a character is built, how your race and class, if they are present, because there's a lot of games that don't have those.
Descended doesn't.
Descended will not. Another big one is anything made by White Wolf Games. Mm-hmm. So Mage the Awakening, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf, Exalted, no class system.
So if anybody's familiar with those games, and then you're looking into the stuff that we're currently working on, you'll understand no classes. They
are, if anyone knows what a freeform character advancement is, that's what they use. They don't even have class levels. You just gain experience points from adventuring, and then you spend them to upgrade yourself in whatever way you need to do next, which is kind of cool. It's Dark Souls does that.
Yep.
Dark Souls has
a class, but never really relevant.
Dark Souls' class just dictates some starting abilities, and more importantly, it's your starting equipment. Mm-hmm. Which is not actually a bad way to do that. Dark Souls does it fairly well.
Yeah. It's okay. Some...
It's an example of having skill or stats that work well. Because not all games handle stats very well.
Do you want to talk about them? I'm just asking because I know that is a gripe.
The only thing. The only thing I would like to mention specifically about stats is the reason I did not include them in Descended.
Go ahead.
All right. So one thing that's always bothered me about games like Dungeons and Dragons is not necessarily that there is an attack roll, because some element of chance should be required. In any game that uses dice, why include the dice if there's no random chance?
It adds tension for...
It does.
There's a success or failure rate.
Yeah, in Descended we opted for the proactive defense where you have to choose to attempt to not get hit, otherwise you're just dealing with the damage you're taking. But, so we kind of reversed it there. But what never made sense to me was, why does being really strong make you more likely to hit your target? It was the only thing that approximates, at least in Dungeons & Dragons, and any D20 game, the only thing that really approximates how skilled you are at combat is your base attack bonus, which is determined strictly by your level. You can't be a wizard that happened to train really well with swords and can therefore hit somebody with a sword very well. You're still a wizard, which means you're bad at combat because the game dictates that you, by your class, you are bad at fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use magic or you're doing terribly.
No, don't worry about it. I'll check comments at the end.
Okay. So, what I chose to do instead was I decided, well, we're gonna forget about stat points. Descended doesn't have stats.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a strength score. You don't have a constitution. None of that. Instead, you choose your bloodline, and that gives you a set of abilities that you are capable of learning, which is kind of cool. And when you're fighting, say you want to hit somebody with a sword, you just take whatever skill is associated with swinging whatever weapon you're trying to hit with, and you roll that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually currently in the process of reassigning the combat skills to make them work.
It should be noted,
But,
as we're going through and reassigning stuff, of course, some little tweaks and changes might go, but this is the model we're sticking with right now. We're pretty far along in it,
yes.
And it's working well in the testing that we've done. So there's no reason for us to...
Yeah.
There's no reason for us to come out and say, we're using skills for combat, and then if you go and try out the game later, see, oh god, this isn't what they told us. We are very solid on this working for our system.
Yeah. We've got, like you would expect from any role-playing game, especially tabletop games, we have a list of skills. It's fairly comprehensive, but we divided them into categories, and you get to train each one of those categories every time you gain a level. So you get to increase skills in a lot of different areas, and you're guaranteed to be able to do something in almost any given situation. It's to prevent... I always remembered, I played a wizard once at level 1. It's a horrible experience after the second round of combat when I no longer had spells left.
Yeah.
So...
That is a real big dump. That's one of the things, even though I really like magic classes in games, that's one of the biggest dumps. I've started shying away from them.
Yeah. I mean, Pathfinder solved that fairly well.
Yeah, they
with what they did with their cantrips and orisons.
But not everybody is caught up to that.
That's true. A lot of people are still playing older editions of games where they still have those flaws, which... And
I have to say, that's never made sense. A mana system in a video game setting... Generally, it can be limited, of course, if you're not focusing on it. But generally, you recharge stuff quickly.
It tends to be balanced.
Yeah, you have a tendency to get that back, and the action keeps going.
A mana system in a tabletop game,
we tried that, and it didn't work.
It's not that it didn't work, it was just more than we wanted people to have to keep track of.
Hi, Dan the Man. Said hi in the chat. Figured I'd say hi.
Okay. Nobody said hi to me, because I'm not part of the channel name, so...
Sorry. Like I said before, if you have any questions specific to us or you want to see the cat,
the cat will happen at the end.
We're checking everything at the end. So
we will unleash the cupcake upon the camera.
We'll go back and check through that. But, oh crud, what was I just saying? This is why that's why I try not to check the chat until that. Stop checking the chat, you're not helping.
Nah, I can't read it well enough from here anyway.
Stats, levels, mana.
Mana.
That's where we left off.
We did, at one point, have mana. It ended up being too difficult to keep track of and didn't fit the flavor of the game we wanted anyway.
Yeah, because combat just started moving so smoothly. We're like...
Yeah, combat was moving really smoothly, and having people keep track of another stat or another... Another, I guess it'd be a vital statistic. Mm-hmm. Another resource. That's what it is.
It just took away from... everything...
Too many resources.
Having that proactive system of defending in situations, dodging, having other options that you could use, kept things moving and kept you paying attention.
It does slow down turns a little bit because... It slows down... During any given turn, there's at least 2 things you can do to stop someone from hitting you.
It slows down turns, but you know what slows down turns a lot more? Your asshole friend sitting across from the table not paying attention when it's their turn, because a round takes forever and you all have a crap ton of options to do, and ultimately what your roll in any other game, usually what ends up happening is you roll a dud and then you don't attack.
And then your turn's over.
And your friend's sitting there checking Facebook because they've been waiting for forever for you to decide to just freaking attack.
But in Descended, you've got, alright, you could attack. Alright, you made your attack, they dodged you. Mm-hmm. But turns out you have 2-weapon fighting and a weapon in your offhand. Spend a minor action, take another attack.
Or just
or
working
any
with
other
other people.
Things.
Calling in your friends to work with you. We do have
there's a lot of that are working. There's a lot of teamwork in Descended where you can call on your allies for help, or you can come to their aid if they're failing. At the present, it's mostly in the defensive aspect, but we'll be adding in some more abilities to alter the winds of fate in your friend's favor.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now, but I know we're still developing some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that will come with more testing. I know we're going to gear up the testing during the summer and start really revealing individual
We'll be entering a heavy testing phase and
start releasing it to people. We want to release it unto you. You right there, specifically. This guy right here. Whoever's right here, right now, you get it. Just want to see what the channel do.
Okay. We're currently entering our alpha test stage. It should go. We don't expect it to take too long.
Mm-hmm.
We expect to have a post-alpha test that we can release to you guys at some point, probably late summer.
Yep.
Mid to late summer, and we hope to officially hit beta sometime late summer, early fall. I think.
That would be a good approximation.
Yeah, that's our goal.
That might even be a little long, with how we've been progressing.
We have a winner.
Yep, let's see what we do.
Maybe.
It's a really weird, strange situation, but okay. There was one more thing
Apparently somebody on our chat is the main character.
Good job. Probably have weird color hair.
Probably.
And a tragic backstory.
Yes.
That's how it happens.
Always.
No parents.
Ava's parents are missing.
Jeez. I don't want to go into the tragic backstories of my characters. There was one more thing I wanted to touch on before we take questions. What was it? I had trouble remembering when we were outlining this before we sat down to broadcast.
Things that we plan on doing in the future. Because Descended is not our only project.
I want to say this. Because you talk too much. Sorry. Oh. We wanted to touch on, we get questions a lot when we sit down and we decide we're going to talk about
our second most asked question is what other games we make.
Well, specifically, a lot of
right
people
after
ask,
is Cupcake still alive?
One of the questions we actually specifically get a lot is people are aware of the fact that as programmers, we have the ability to start making video games right now. That is not our main project.
I think I've been asked, because a lot of our viewers are aware that between the two of us, I'm the stronger programmer, and it's what I do for a living.
He likes to
but
tease me about it.
I've been specifically asked, I think at least once every time we've done this segment, why aren't we making this a video game? And we've never adequately answered that. The real answer is because we have more games in the future that, in fact, our next game we want to work on is a video game.
Yes.
It's not that we don't want to make them.
It's just that this was not conceptualized as a video game.
Yes.
But that gives us an opportunity to talk about, we have played, how do I follow this? You click the follow button. You give us a heart, and then we'll give you hearts back. You don't have to do it on Twitter. You can do it on Twitch. It's cool. We'll get to all that at the end.
We also have a Facebook, but unfortunately I'm in charge of that, and I don't keep up on it very well. Yeah, I do post updates every time we do a Twitch segment, though.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and go over all this stuff at the bottom at the end, but the thing that we wanted to touch on, before wrapping all this up is some of the other systems that we like from games that we want to incorporate in future projects. We do have an entire archive of future projects. Basically, anytime we blurt something out, we write it down because we don't know. Sometimes you have to get the stupid out. That's not a lie. We have
Broccoli Battles.
Shut up, Broccoli Battles is gold. No, but sometimes you do have to get the stupid ideas out. Sometimes you just have to purge your brain so you can think clearly about all the rest of the things that you're actually focusing on, the stuff you want to see get made. Other times you have really solid ideas, and I think specifically for video games, one of our favorite game types that just doesn't have a lot of good games in it are roguelike games.
Yeah, not recently. They have had some good ones in the past. All the Diablo games have been pretty good.
Diablo games a little more actiony.
It fits the definition of roguelike.
Yeah, you know,
it's a randomly generated dungeon with a heavy emphasis on the equipment to find, and permadeath. Permadeath is usually a really big deal in them.
If you're familiar with more like the Diablo games are a great example. Something
we're gonna be going.
Don't mention that one. Don't mention that one. Don't say that one on camera.
On the shelf over there.
The Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games follow this. There was an app game that came out. I can't remember what it was now. They're basically
the one that I was familiar with was Azure Dream. That's one that I played when I was little.
Basically, if you take the grid system that you see in like your strategy game,
but you apply it to a single player.
That's a little bit more dynamic.
Yes.
And of course, random dungeons. That's the big thing.
Yes.
You have random and completely expansive dungeons. That's like that's one we've always talked about. It's been our favorite, and it's just. We're focusing on this project, and for the life of us, with the new job and everything, we've got a lot going on, so...
Our lives are changing for the better.
The worst thing that we could have happen, to be perfectly honest, about not, going right into developing video games, is we don't want to be one of those people who puts out a Kickstarter, and we're like, we've got this great game, check out our trailer, and then 3 years later, you're like, I invested in that. I don't want to be that guy.
We don't want to be those people where we get fans, and those fans give us money, and then a few years later they're like, what happened to those guys?
And I've seen that happen with a couple of projects on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. That is rough. That is a rough...
Yeah, our goal is to stick around for as long as we can, making fun games. Mm-hmm. Fun
and
things.
I think starting with a labor of love like this, where... we don't have to draw other people in. It gives us an opportunity to prove to everybody else that we are capable of making something fun and entertaining, and it opens us up to be able to do bigger projects in the future. Lord knows we need a better camera first, though.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that was the one major question. Are there any other just game systems that you want to talk about since we're on the topic?
That we're making?
Just in general, or stuff that you like, stuff that you want to see be used.
I'd like to make an action game, but it may be beyond my technical ability.
Well, that wouldn't be a solo thing.
Yeah.
If Blank Page ever becomes that AAA name, promise you, we're not gonna go EA on you guys. That is a promise. You can hold us to that. We will put it on YouTube. The whole world will see it.
This will be on YouTube by Wednesday.
It'll be on YouTube by later tonight. We'll put it up.
Yeah. So if you didn't see all of the episode and you want to catch something you missed earlier, or if you gotta leave early and you want to see the end, check us out on YouTube, which is not on our.
I'm getting around to it. I didn't put it up there for a reason. I remember why now.
Why?
I'll tell everybody at the end.
Okay.
So, are there any other games you want to talk about? Other than that, I'm gonna take questions.
We have a couple more games that we could talk about a couple ideas that we had. Because I know I had another idea for another tabletop, because it's kind of what I do.
He does. He's got a problem.
I have another game. It's more high fantasy than the one we've got. It's a little more complex than Descended is going to be. It's going to be probably more along the style of what White Wolf does, where they've got the classless, level-less.
Actually, what I think we talked about
freeform gaming.
I think we talked about Neverall in our first.
We might have.
We did. We talked about it as being kind of our turning point.
Yeah, it'll be a success-based game.
Mm-hmm.
So you roll lots of dice and you count the number of ones that hit their target number. It's an interesting system. It's not
it's a fun system, and it works really well with board games too.
Yes, it does. Arkham Horror. Which
is the hardest board game on earth.
It's a little unwieldy. Chaosel's worse.
No, Chaosel's easier.
It just takes a long time to play.
They both take forever.
If you really hate your friends, play Chaosel and be the sorcerer. Because nothing's better than dropping a nuke on a dragon.
Yeah. You know, there's a reason we don't play that game anymore. There's a reason we play so many video games, or not video games, board games. I think that's why I've been so against us making board games. I know that you're going to put in some bullshit. You're going to kill me. Because that's our life. It's he does some bullshit and I die.
Alright, you want to take some questions?
I do. Go ahead and pull
off?
Cupcake down. Alright, so the questions.
Everyone gets to look at...
Oh, you know what I just realized? For like the 100th time, I have...
Here is Cupcake.
Cupcake, come over here and answer questions.
Oh.
Cupcake doesn't want to answer questions. Cupcake's not taking questions today. One thing I did want to say...
No, here she is.
Good.
See,
now I
still
forgot what it
alive.
was. Now I forgot what it was. Oh, well.
The question?
There was a question I wanted to take, or there was something I wanted to say and I can't remember it. That's... Well, now you all know. Okay, so going back here, everybody gets to see Cupcake.
Oh, there she goes. She's gone. Wow, bypassed her spot.
Okay, so we came across Tasteless Game. A lot of people just talking, sharing experiences in the chat.
That's good.
Shaky18 says hi Cupcake. Everybody always says hi Cupcake.
Yes. She's not dead. Don't worry.
I guess we must have covered a lot. I know we started a little later than usual.
We did. Normally we would have... Well, we would have been normally mid-afternoon on a Sunday.
Yeah, so we started a little later than usual. Normally we have a lot of discussion going on in the beginning. I guess we kind of covered everything this time around, which is great, because, you know, it gives us an opportunity to sign off on time.
Yes.
Which is nice. Good for all my editing. And then, yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and wrap it up with footnotes. Of course, as usual, along the bottom, we have all of the social media stuff. Yeah, I'm on Tumblr and Vine. I do art stuff. I actually wanted to have concept art ready for this week, but if you've seen any of my past broadcasts, or you have seen what I was doing all last week, I was just taking commissions for Amiibos.
Yeah.
And obsessing over all that stuff that I have to get. I still have stuff I have to finish, which has put on hold a couple of our other broadcasts, but not our projects. Other than just me finishing up concept art.
I don't know, what was the last thing I did for Descended? Weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been working hard on that.
We also elected to up the technology level ever so slightly.
Yes. But we can share that later. So yeah, our project...
Nobody's going to be impressed by the tech level upgrade. All it does is justify great science.
But no, you know, we haven't slowed down on the production of the games. I've just been trying to keep up with my commissions. Of course, it's important. I don't want to shirk my responsibilities. I do other things outside of this because I'm insane. But everything we have going down along here on the bottom of Facebook and Twitter are the places you will see the most update about specifically this, and then just us dicking around playing games and stuff. Tumblr and Vine if you want to follow any artwork related things.
I'll probably start posting some more regular updates on what I'm working on specifically for Descended.
Well, especially now that we're going to start moving into producing the book itself. And then other than that, I did mention we don't have YouTube down here. It's because we just brought our YouTube channel to export all of our stuff. If you want to see any of the things we've talked about in the past, or you want to see us absolutely fail at playing games in any competent way whatsoever, we do have a YouTube channel down in the description below that will, you know, link to it. As soon as we get enough people where I can actually post a coherent link and it's not just a bunch of gobbledygook, it'll go up on here too and you'll be able to see that.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
What do we get to by next week? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And
Every
2
other
weeks.
week. You know, we might have a little bit of a different topic of discussion going away from our normal game development stuff, because there was a couple of things I started to notice. I just wanted to, you know, purge, again, just one of those things, purging some ideas, and we may or may not talk about, like, the current trends that we've been seeing in game development lately.
Okay.
We might talk about that. If not, of course, we'll be back. We will be discussing more specifics about the characters and stuff in Descended and gearing people up, talking about our testing.
We may get into the bloodlines, even.
Yes.
Maybe not next session, maybe time after that, although a month is a long time to wait for
It is
the meat and bones of the
It is, but we have so much testing and finished work for developing. Like I said, we don't want to be those people on Kickstarter who say, we've got a game, and we really don't. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
We're finishing up our testing, and we're going to make sure that when it comes time to invite people in and check out the worlds that we're making and, you know, show you what we've got going, forget it.
Stuff.
Once we have everything together that, you know, we want to present it to the world and introduce people to this new world, we will put it out there, but not before that. Want to make sure that we're done and ready to go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're having a lot of lighting changes.
I know.
Our camera is being dumb.
Yeah, so maybe next time a new camera too.
Maybe.
I hope so.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you again for being here.